So in Germany, there were parliamentary elections. Now, this election was called after the Green Light Traffic Light Coalition, made up of Olaf Scholz's Social Democrats, that was the Chancellor, the Green Party, and the Liberal Party, the FDP, led by Christian Lindner. Now, their coalition broke up earlier, like a few months ago, after their agreement for how the budget should move forward wasn't able to be found. The problem was that the Olaf Scholz and the Social Democrats and the Greens wanted to take on more debt in order to deal with Germany's crumbling infrastructure. I don't want to say crumbling infrastructure, like it's literally crumbling, but their infrastructural problems, which they have a lot of. They, of course, have right now industrial problems with the car manufacturing industry in Germany taking real hits, taking the competition with electric cars internationally pretty hard, and also to send more aid to Ukraine, because Germany has this debt limit, a debt ceiling, that they don't go over in order to encourage fiscal investment and to make people think, oh, you know, German bonds are valuable, Germany's fiscally responsible. And that debt limit was put in place by Angela Merkel after the people had, you know, some concerns about the increasing debt. And it's kept in place for a while. And Olaf Scholz wanted to make an exception for, you know, the war in Ukraine and like issues of infrastructure and such and all these other issues. Now, Christian Lindner did not want to make that exception. And so the Greens and Olaf Scholz's Social Democrats were not able to find common ground, and the coalition broke apart. And so then they called elections. And so the elections have happened, and it was dominated by a lot of media attention and a lot of international attention that I did not expect it to get. I expected to get media attention. I did not expect Elon Musk to personally get involved and start endorsing German political parties. And he endorsed the AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, which is the anti-immigrant far-right party against aid to Ukraine, who wants to reopen the energy valves from Russia straight back into Germany, and we re-welcome them into the European community, the one they very well may invade again in the next decade. So he endorsed them after very shallow knowledge of German politics. And there was a lot of fear that that endorsement, plus the recent like campaigning, would actually get AfD up in the numbers. They would overperform, and maybe there was even a possibility that they could, you know, get close to the CDU. But at the end of the day, they performed just about where the polling numbers had them before Elon Musk endorsed them. So Elon Musk's endorsement and his, you know, calling into their big event and endorsing Alternative for Deutschland, it didn't end up really moving the needle all that much. Alternative for Deutschland performed best in East Germany, where they have really, really big strongholds there. And they did not perform as well in Western Germany. But I mean, they still, in many places where the SPD and the CDU won, the AfD still took second place. So even though the AfD is who's been getting all the coverage, the winner was the CDU. That's Angela Merkel's party, the Christian Democratic Union, and its regional office in Bavaria, led by Friedrich Merz. Now, Friedrich Merz, he is going to probably make a coalition government with Olaf Scholz's SPD, meaning that the Social Democrats are not leaving the government. Now, it might be a little confusing as to, wait, so Olaf Scholz loses the election and this party stays in power? How does that work? Well, the way that governments in Germany work is that they, if you don't get 50%, if you don't have a majority of the seats, then in order to get a parliamentary majority to make up your government, you have to enter a coalition. And so much of the real speculation about this election, for those in German politics who did not think the AfD was going to, you know, overperform, was a question of who the CDU was going to have to work with, whether it was going to be Olaf Scholz, or it was going to be the Olaf Scholz and the Greens, or it was going to have to be something else. But due to the BSW and FDP not performing well enough to get that 5% threshold necessary to enter the parliament, they will not be entering parliament. And due to their performance and the SPD's performance, it's just enough for the next CDU government to be made up of the Social Democrats and the CDU. This is probably good for Frederick Merz because less coalition partners means more stability in the government, more likely. Now, that's not 100% guaranteed, but if you have to negotiate and come to agreement with one partner on everything and not two partners on everything, especially when the Greens have a lot of energy priorities, green energy priorities that don't really match up one-to-one with what the CDU want, that could be a problem. So we're probably going to see a Frederick Merz Social Democrats alliance, and that's the government that's going to be brought about. The AFD got 20%. Now, 152 seats is not enough to enter government. It is not enough to necessarily knock down the political firewall that's been put up to exclude them from deals. But there is one warning sign I want to attach to that. Frederick Merz did make one agreement and one deal, or did pass one law with the AFD support when it has to do with the issue of migration. When he said that it was just a one-time thing and it's not going to be in other instances, but one of the last arguments that Olaf Scholz made on the campaign trail against Frederick Merz was because of this agreement that he wasn't as credible as a upholder of the barriers against the AFD. But if he enters government with the Social Democrats, I imagine, even if he wanted to, which he hasn't expressed that he wants to, it just that they have done stuff before, then he can be probably limited by Olaf Scholz's SPD anyway. So even if there is some interest, if he partners with the Social Democrats, that's probably going to make that interest more difficult. Now, moving forward, I do want to just say that Frederick Merz, for the big issue that I care about in the immediate sense, which is of course the war in Ukraine and rebuilding Europe's security apparatus, Frederick Merz is one of the few that's talking positively right now. When I say positively, I mean talking about actionable solutions, not actionable in the idea that we can immediately do it, but actionable as in here's an idea that we can pursue that we could do in order to prepare, instead of just sitting back and waiting to see what Donald Trump negotiates with the Russians, sitting back and waiting to see what Donald Trump offers the Europeans. He is instead coming out, and this was before the election, so this was before the results were in. Merz said that he doesn't have any illusions about Trump, and that they want to work with the United States, but that the U.S. right now probably does not care about the fate of Europe at all. And so Europe needs to build its own security apparatus that will defend itself. Basically, he's saying that we need to wake up to the reality that the idea of America's ironclad NATO 5, Article 5 guarantee, which means that you would get attacked, we help you, we get attacked, you help us, is not so steadfast anymore. It's not taken as seriously anymore by Trump. If it's not taken as seriously by Trump, that it's not going to be taken as seriously by Europe's enemies. And so he wants to take this on head on. Listen to this.
Die absolute Priorität aus meiner Sicht ist, dass sich die Europäer verständigen, dass sie einig sind untereinander. Zurzeit findet der größere Teil der europäischen Politik ohne Deutschland statt.
Wow, isn't that great? In German. I don't know why I wanted to play it. Just, that's what he said there. There's it in German if you think I'm lying. The point is, though, Frederick Merz is talking about European defense separate from Trump in a way that feels like the swallowing of medicine, of cough medicine, where you're downing something that you know you have to, but you don't really want to. That's the vibe I am really getting off of this. As if they're swallowing a pill that they know they probably have to. They know that Trump cannot be really trusted when it comes to supporting Europe's defense. So for the meantime, probably for the foreseeable future, they're going to have to think about defense as a unit separate from America, since they can't be guaranteed to come and support. Speaking of that, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Ireland to donate air defense systems to Ukraine as war enters fourth year. Reported by the Irish Times. This would be the first military aid Ukraine has been given at all by the Irish. The government is to donate a substantial portion of Ireland's aging air defense systems to protect towns and small cities in Ukraine as Russia's invasion enters its 4th year. The transfer of the Grif Mark IV radar systems forms part of the government's commitment to assist Ukraine with non-lethal military equipment and training. Why non-lethal? The Irish feel bad for shooting the occupier. I feel bad car bombing them. Anyway, sorry, continuing. Official sources said on Sunday the move was intended to show continued solidarity with Ukraine at a time when the government of Volodymyr Zelensky is coming under pressure from the Trump administration in Washington, which wants to reach a deal with Russia on ending the war. Ireland is expected to give strong support to Ukraine at meetings in both Brussels and at the United Nations in New York on Monday, the 3rd anniversary of the Russian invasion. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Simon Harris, who's attending a meeting on the European Union foreign ministers in Brussels, will say continued support for Ukraine was a necessity and not a choice. Russia's aggression threatens not only Ukraine but all of Europe. This is why Ireland stands with Ukraine, now and as long as it takes. We'll see how much they'll give them. I'm sure it'll just end up being a few systems. They don't have much to give them in the first place. But it can help them track missiles and drones as they come towards major Ukrainian cities. Dylan, I remember back the background of that Twitter clip of Murs, DW real-time translated the whole segment. Oh, really? Oh, the whole segment? Oh, I don't know if I want to... 31 minutes. The election just ended.